Release the Kraken!
Welcome back, fellow game designers. In our last few episodes, went ahead and made some icons and whatnot. And in between, I went ahead and updated some of my ships. So you can see that I got my prefabs here. I've got my small enemy, medium enemy. I have my boss. They are in. But I want to show you how to make the bullet and the missile. Those are pretty quick. So I'm going to jump into Maya here. And in a new scene, I'm going to add in a cylinder. And this all depends on the size of your ships. I would recommend going ahead and measuring, or you can do this inside of one of your ship files so you can see about the size of the bullet. But you really should know the scale of things before you move them in and out. So I've already measured my ship, and I know that a bullet for my ship is going to be about 2.5 centimeters in diameter. So I'm going to take the cylinder here, and I do want my bullet to point down the forward axis, which is Z. So I'm going to go over to my x-axis, and I'll rotate it 90. That's going to make it point down the z-axis. And you can see that rotated here. If your axis doesn't look like this, it's okay. If you hold down the W key and left click, you can see that you can change what viewing mode you're in. Right now I'm in object. So if I select the object, I'm going to see the compass relative to the object. But if I hold down W and click, I can also change that to world. And now I can see the compass relative to the world axis. So it's a handy way of seeing which way it's actually pointing, but whatnot. So anyway, this is pointing down Z, which is great. And then I'm going to go to my polycylinder options here. My radius is going to be 2.5. I've already measured this out, so that's how I know. And then my height is going to be 7.5. Okay. Once again, you should really measure what these are going to be for your ships. So here's my bullet, and I do want to round the end over here. Now, of course, we can pull the vertex out and we can do some cuts, but actually in our polycylinder options, we can just do that here. So I'm going to come down to round cap, and I'm going to turn this to on. You can see if I hover my mouse over, I get this little slider. I can just left click and drag it to on or off. Or you can type in on, or you can type in 1. Either of those work, and you can turn that to on. And it sets our caps to a little pointy thing. I'm then going to go up to my caps subdivision, and then I can just left click and drag on this 1 here and drag, and I can set a number. I find this to be a bit finicky. I prefer to just select the cap word here and then middle mouse drag, and then I can just set these a little bit cleaner. And I like, let's see, a cap of 3 is kind of pointy. I'll do a cap of 4. And that's a little bit smoother. Awesome. So now I have a rounded cap for the bullet, but I don't want to have a rounded back end. Well, what do? Well, pretty easy. We're just going to flatten this off. I'm going to go into my top view. Zoom in here. We can see that Z is this way, so this is the front of the bullet. I'm going to go to edge mode. And then this is going to be the back of the bullet. And all I'm going to do is delete any of the edge loops that I don't need. So if I hover over this one here, I'll double click. That'll grab the whole thing. And then I can just press delete. I'll do the next one, and then delete. And then the last one, delete. Again, I'm double clicking to select it all and then deleting. But now we still have this little bubbly shape. Well, the reason is when we delete an edge, we also have to delete the vertices. So I'll go into vertex mode, and you can see here the vertices. If I double click the vertex, it'll grab all of them. And I can just press delete. And now all the extra ones are gone, and I'm just left with this last one here on the center. We have to have this because that's where all the points intersect, and we don't want an end gone. So we're going to keep this, but we're going to snap it in line with its relatives here. I'm going to hold down the V key. That's going to change my handle. I'm going to drag the arrow, and I'll pull down toward these guys here, and it'll just snap it flat. And look at that. We have a bullet. Okay. Now on the back end, you can see it's kind of shadowy. That's because the normals still think they should be curved, but we've actually flattened it off. So we're going to tell it to have a more straight normal. So I'm going to grab object mode here. I'm going to go up to mesh display, come down to soften and harden edges, and that's going to run an algorithm that crisps all the ones that should be on a hard edge to be solid, and anything that's supposed to curve should taper to a nice round curve, which is really handy. And there is the bullet. Let's go check out the UVs. UV editor. And the UVs are good. These are the default UVs. Since we didn't do any major changes to the structure, we can keep the defaults. I'm happy with those, and I'll just close that. I am going to name this. This is going to be bullet. And then I will clear off any construction history, and I will also reset any transforms. So I'll go up to Modify, Freeze Transforms. That's going to clear those off. And then I'm going to go up to Edit, Delete by Type, and then History. Awesome. I'm going to take my bullet, go to File, Export Selection, and then I will just save over my SM_bullet. Again, I've already made one, so I measured out what I was going to do before the video. So remember that our prefix is SM for static mesh, and then whatever the name of it is, and we're using the FBX file type. Under the Geometry tab, I have these 3 boxes checked. So Smooth Groups, Smooth Mesh, and Reference Asset. Under Animation, I have no animations checked because I don't have any. And then I can export. Yay. So there's the bullet. I'm going to go ahead and hide this, but before that, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate. So I'll hit Control-D to duplicate. And then I'll hide the original. So I'll grab the original, press H. And then I'll grab the new one. I'm going to name this one Missile. So M-I-S-S-I-L-E for missile. Now a missile is much bigger than a bullet, but how much bigger do I need? I'm going to go into Unity here, and then I will drag in my bullet. So this is, I should be under static meshes here. There we go. So here's my bullet, and if I drag my bullet in next to my ship, I'm going to just set this to 0, 0. Let's see, about relative to the ship here. That's how big my bullet is. That looks good. But how big should a missile be? Well, if you ever look at missiles on like a fighter jet, they're a pretty decent size. They're about the size of a person, 6 to 9 feet long. So I'm going to go ahead and try to scale this up. So I'll scale it, let's say maybe by 3. Yeah, I think that's good. So 3 times the original size, maybe a little bit longer. So maybe on the length, maybe 5. Yeah, that's good. So 5 times long, and then 3 times in the other 2 directions. So I'm going to come down to here, and I'm just going to scale my new one. So the forward axis is going to be 5. And then my top and bottom axes, those are going to be 3 times. So here is the missile. And I'm going to do some embellishments to make it look more missile-like. So for example, we need some fins. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Insert Edge Loop tool, so Mesh Tools. Come down to Insert Edge Loop, get the options. I'm going to set this to multi-edge loops, and then I'll do 2. And then I'll click the body, just like this. And I'm clicking on one of the edges here, and that's just going to cut through. That looks good. Let me turn that tool off, and I'll hit Q to turn off my selection tool. All right, now I'll pull out the fins. So I'll grab face selection, and I've got 2 faces here. Because I don't have an exact center, I'm going to grab 2. Same thing on the top. I don't have an exact center, so I'll grab 2. Same thing on the bottom. I don't have an exact center, so I'll hit 2. And then right here, no exact center, so I'll hit 2. Awesome. And then I will use the extrude tool. So I hit extrude. For this, I'll just pull the blue arrow, pull that out, about as far as I want it to be for the fins. And then I want to thin this off, so I'm going to hit the little blue box. I'm going to click it once, and now I can grab the middle box and drag it to the left. And that's pretty good. And then I also want to take the left and right scale, and drag it back. Now, if I look at this, this scale runs pretty much left and right relative to this shape here. So I'm going to grab this one and drag upward until it tapers thin. That looks pretty good. And I'll hit W. And now I'm going to go and select pretty much all of the centers. So I'll go in, get edge mode, I'll grab this center. And I'll go up to this one, grab that center, and this center. All right, with all of those selected, I'm going to hold down the W key. I'm going to left click into my world here. So W, left click. And then I'm going to go to the component option. And now when I move this, based on the component's direction, I can move all of them. So I'll just pull out on the component and the X, and you can see I can pull all these out, and they should match direction, which is good. And then I can pull them all back. So let me go ahead and grab all the vertices over here. So vertex, I'll grab all of these. Let me just go into my front view, just so I can see all of them. And I'll get all these, so I'm holding shift and dragging, hold shift. I'm adding that to my selection, hold that, hold shift and add that to your selection. And then I can just move all these at the same time back. But you can see that the handle is kind of all directions, and that's not very good. I'm going to change my moving system into world. So W, left click, go into world. And now they're all going to obey the world axis, and I'll just pull these back. So there, now I have my missile. And I can do a couple more embellishments just to make it fancy. Like maybe this is going to have like a cone shape, and maybe I can pull this in. So let's go into object mode. I'm going to go ahead and grab the multi-cut tool. And back here, I'll hold down the control key, and I can add in a loop right around here. So I think that's good. Go into edge mode. I'll hit Q to turn off my selection tool, and then I'll grab this loop here. Scale tool is R, and then I will scale inward. That gives me this little cone shape. And I can do something similar to the body shape here. So maybe I can take these, and then like for right here, I can do sort of the same thing. I can go into my multi-cut, and I will add a cut right about here. And then Q turns off my tool, make sure I'm in edge selection. I'll grab this edge, R, and then I will scale it. Not too bad, but I need to move it forward some. Let's see from the top here. Yeah, that's good enough. And let's do the end here. I guess I can make that a little bit more pointy. So I'll get this one point in the end, and I'll move that out. That's pretty good on the embellishments there. Let's set this to object mode, and we'll go to display, mesh display, and then soften harden edges to get a much crisper look. And now let's go ahead and UV this. This one needs a little bit more love and attention, just because it has extra shapes. So UV editor. Now this looks like it's okay, but it really isn't. So what we're going to do is take a projection, so create, we'll do planar, and then options. And I'll do this from, let's do it from the top, which is Y. I'll let apply, and that gives us this. Now most of this is overlapping on other things. So what I want to do is separate out this upper section. So I'm going to go to face selection. I'll grab this and go up to create, planar, options. And I will project this from Z, which is the front. Apply. And this is its own thing. I can close that. And now I need to unfold this because I have overlapping geometry. Go ahead and deselect, and then go to UV selection, grab it, and let's do an unfold. That's probably good enough. I'll move this over. I'll get the back end of this. I will project that from these front. So Z, project, And then I'll go to UV selection, grab it, you just double click, unfold. There's that part. The wings, I'm going to go ahead and just do those as automatics. So I'll get this wing, that wing. Let me move my screen here. This wing and this wing. So just those 4 wings there. Create automatic. So here are the wings. I'm going to have to do some more work on those, but I'm going to do the body first. So I'm going to grab the body in face selection. So I have the whole body. Go up to create, come down to cylindrical. And then I can unwrap that as a cylinder. And that looks pretty good, but the problem is the cylinder is actually rotated 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and come out here. And this is the cylinder that is capturing our model, and you can see it's going around the body in the wrong direction. So down here on the cylinder, there's a little handle. If I click it, it's going to give me the option to rotate. And then I can bring up the rotation. So I'll click the circle. And then very carefully, I'll hold in the J key. And then I will rotate this middle one right here. And I'll rotate that forward. And since I'm holding J, I can snap rotate until it's flat. There we go. So this gives me a much cleaner projection. I'll grab UV selection and I'll move it. And then just to make this even, I'm going to cut this one and sew it over here. Edge mode. Select this UV edge. Cut it. Select this one back here. Stitch it. Don't mind it jumping, it's okay. But those are kind of even Steven now. And then these ones on the fins, I'll just sew them together. So let's see. What's a good starting point here? So this is one wing. Let's see who it's married to. If I hover over, I can see I'm connected to this one over here, so I'll grab face selection and I'll just move this over. This is one part of the wing, and this is this other part. Okay. So this is all one wing. I'm going to select all of it. Let's make sure that's one complete wing. Okay, so I have the top and the back. I don't have this front. There it is. And here's that front. And I'll just move this over here. I'll just sew these to here. So I'll stitch, and then I'll stitch here. I want this one to stay straight, so I'll change the A to B. We'll get this. This is annoying, but I'll just deal with it. And then up here, this is the middle. I guess I can put that here. Good enough. Let me grab one of the other centers. I don't really care which one. That's going to go there. And what I'm trying to do is group these so that they're easier to paint, and that so I know which wing is which, because right now I have no idea. So let's move this from B to A. And I'll do this one. Again, if it jumps, just Control Z and then go back. All right, and I guess I'll get this one here. Close enough. There's an upside and a downside to being tired when you do this. The upside is you'll reach a point where if you're OCD, you'll say, I don't care, and just get it done because your time is just limited. The downside is later you might be like, ugh, why did I do that? But I know that I can just compensate for the curve when I paint it, so I'll just deal with it later. Also, Autodesk, maintain A to B. Seriously. Having to switch this every time is exhausting. Come on now. This one's pretty straight. Like, this would have been ideal if all of them came out straight. This is straighter. But whatever. Close enough. You know, we'll have wings. Let me break that apart. I'm just going to do it this way so that I have a very similar connection to the other ones here. And this time, if you grab multiple, you can just do both at the same time. So let's go ahead and stitch. Now I want to do the other way. There we go. Yay. These are slightly closer to being a wing that I can understand. What is this one? And this one. One of these is going to give me a pattern that I like. I think it's this one. Grab both of those, I'll stitch. Oops. There we go. And then one of these. Other way. Yay. So now I have all these. I want to lay it out, but I want it to be a consistent size. So what I can do is I'll grab these guys here, shrink them down. I want to fit them on here. Get these over to here. What I'm looking to do is match the size of this to the size of one of these. This is a little bit extra big, so I'll get both of these, or all three of these here. Shrink it down just a little bit more. Make sure I can fit it on here. And then for these wings, I'm going to try to fit them on here in a somewhat logical pattern. You can see I can't get everything on here without shrinking it, so I'm going to shrink down a little bit more. I'll grab everything, shrink it a little bit more. And I can really get some more space in here. Maybe I'll rotate this way. And I'll rotate that this way. All right, so I've got the wings and the body. You know what? I will send this to Photoshop. I'll grab this one. Let's go to Image, UV Snapshot. I'll call this Missile UVs. So at the very end of the address, just after the slash, you can change the name there, or you can hit Browse and do it. But I'll change that to Missile UVs, and I'll apply it. Close that. That's good. And then for the bullet, let me go ahead and turn the bullet back on. I'll hide the missile. I exported the bullet, but what I didn't do is I did not give it a new material. So right now it has a standard on here, and when I go to Unity, you'll see that the material on there is a standard surface. That I don't want, so I'm going to go ahead and just nuke my bullet from here. I'm going to jump into Maya again. I'm just going to export a different material, so rendering, I'll pick whatever material I like and just name it. So I'll call this bullet texture. I don't have anything to put on it, but when I export it, I just want to have it as a visual so I know which one it is. So just re-export over the old one. Bullet texture. Or sorry, bullet object. And I can hide that. And then for my missile, hi there. I'm going to export that. Make sure I have the missile texture. So a new material. Missile texture. And I'll export that. Export selection. SM_missile. Yay! And then in Photoshop, let me go ahead and just create a new document. I'll go ahead and open up my missile UVs. As usual, I'll just name this UVs. Throw on a stroke of whatever type. You can make your adjustments here. Just make sure it's set to outside. Pick a color and a size. I'll just do 3 so it's easy on camera. And then for my background, I'll do a solid color. Okay. And then for my missile color, I'll go ahead and add on that. Go away. I'll say missile. However you want to color this is fine. I'm going to do the bottom black. I'll do these wings. Maybe I'll do red, the top red, and the body white. So I'll go ahead and grab a brush. I've got a good red over here, so for that, I'll adjust my paintbrush, right-click to adjust size. And then for the wings, I'll just paint where I want the red to be. It's okay if I go outside the lines. I'm not going to break anything by going outside. It's actually better to go outside the lines for UVs. Okay, and then for the top, I'm going to also do this. Now, you might wonder how I know it's the top, and the top has more cuts to be round than the bottom does. The bottom can be black, so I'll just leave it on the black background. And then for the body, I'll do that as kind of like an off-white. Not quite white, but not very gray, just kind of like in the middle there. And then I just paint to fill that in. Awesome. I'll turn the UVs off. File, save, missile texture. Make sure I save that. And then the targa file. There's my missile albedo. 24-bit is fine. Jump back into Unity. And let's import this stuff. I've got the bullet and the missile. Where are you at? There you are. Bring those in. Okay, so for the bullet, I'll go to Materials and then Extract. Grab my materials. Same thing for the missile. Materials, extract it. Materials. Go to my Materials folder. Get my missile texture, which is over here. So textures, let's go to medium enemy missile albedo. There we go. So now the missile should have the appropriate color on there. Let's grab the actual static mesh. There it is. I have the missile texture, which is good. I need to make sure that's attached to the material. So here's my missile material. Hit the albedo and grab the missile texture, which is this guy. There we go. How does that look? Let me drag the missile into the game here. There it is. That's kind of cool. And for my bullet material, the stony gray might be good, sure. But what I can do is I can have some fun. I can come down to emission. I'll check the box here. And what emission does is it allows me to make something glow when I want it to, if I wanted to. So in this case, I'll go to the HDR color. And what color do I want this to look like? Maybe I'll do like an orange right here and get it like real bright orange, like up in here. So whenever the bullet is fired, it could be like a tracer round, you know. If I drag this in, you can see it's like this little orange color. And that's kind of cool. And now I'll go ahead and set up my prefabs. So in my prefab for my bullet, I'll open that up. I no longer need the sphere. And let me get the static mesh. I'll drag the bullet in. So there's the bullet. And then for the actual boundary, I'll take off the sphere collider. And then I'll add a mesh component, so a mesh collider. Make sure I check convex. And then we'll add the bullet mesh, which is here. And that should get me a really close approximation. That's great. And I can jump out of that. And then I'm going to make the prefab for my missile. So I'll just right click in here, create prefab. Where are you at? There it is. This will be the missile. Inside here, I will add the missile static mesh. Frame up on it. Looks good. It's pointing down Z. For the collision body, I'm just going to use a capsule collider. So I'll go to add component. I'll do capsule. That'll drop me a capsule. And I want the capsule to have a tighter radius. Let's take the radius down like that. And we'll point this down the Z-axis like so. And I'll just shrink down the height a little bit. So let's do 0.1 for the radius. That's it. I can actually go down a little bit lower. 0.9. How about 0.08? That looks good. And then the height, let's dial that down. I'm going to go down a little bit more. Let's check the height here. So I just hit the Y, and then I'm going to frame it by hitting it center. So that looks pretty close. I'll adjust the center of this. So I have my Z. I'll take my Z value. I'll move it forward some. And that looks pretty close here. How about 0.5? Sorry. 0.05. And then for the height, maybe I'll make that 0.5. There we go. The reason why I pushed to 0.55 is just so if the missile is real close, you might be like, oh, it totally should have hit, but it didn't. If the fin cuts through, you know, the explodey part of a missile is at the tip, so you're not going to get mad if the fin cuts through and misses. You're like, oh, whatever, you hit the fin. It's not that big of a deal. So I think that's good. And we got those out. Awesome. So we have the bullets updated. In the next one, I want to set up the transition between the different levels. Okay, so save your work, stay tuned, and I shall see you next time. Hey guys, thank you for checking out my channel. Misty and I both thank you. If you enjoyed that video you just watched, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Or if you want to support the channel, check me out on Patreon or pick up one of my books, Life and Times Down in Marton or The Guardian's Path of Ascension. Speaking of which, I'm converting The Guardians into a graphic novel / comic book series. Here is a sneak peek. My wonderful artist, Patrick, is doing a great job. I'm excited. I want to push this out as soon as possible. So definitely keep your ears and eyes open for that. I'll be making announcements as we get closer, and I'll post some shots of that as we go. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can check me out on Twitter. I guess now it's X. Who does that? It's BruceRF1 at Twitter, or at whatever the new thing for Twitter is. Anyway, hopefully see you there, and I'll see you guys next time.